As the sun descended below the horizon in Salem, it created a golden haze that emerged from the windows of the Kyriakis mansion, which reached from floor to ceiling. The text message from Chad was still flashing on the screen as Stephanie Johnson stood in the great entryway, her heart beating as she grabbed her phone. The message read, "Alex is spiraling off the deep end. You are the only person who can succeed in communicating with him." She hadn't wanted to come here, hadn't wanted to confront the man who had once held her heart in his hands, only to crush it with his ambition. She hadn't wanted to come here. However, Salem had a way of bringing individuals back into one another's orbits, regardless of how much they tried to get away from each other from it. There he was, Alex Kyriakis, leaning against the desk with a tumbler of bourbon in one hand and his black eyes glinting with a mixture of defiance and tiredness. The massive oak door to the study creaked open, and there he was. The havoc that he had been spreading in the name of power caused his tailored suit to be slightly rumpled, which was a witness to the chaos. Everyone in the community was on edge because of the takeover attempt for Demera Enterprises, and Alex was at the center of it all. He was playing a risky game with Stefano's legacy. The tone of his voice was low and almost contemptuous when he addressed Stephanie. "To whom do I owe the joy that I am experiencing? Will you once more give me a lecture about the reckless choices I've made?" She looked at him with her blue eyes fixed on his, and she squared her shoulders. "To clarify, Alex, this is not a lecture. This is a request for assistance. Please take a seat and stand down." A harsh laugh came out of his mouth as he shook the amber liquid that was in his glass. "Are you going to sit down? By what means? Creating something that is real. Taking what is rightfully mine. You remind me of my father, who always speaks about self-control despite the fact that the world continues to move." Stepping closer, Stephanie's heels made a clicking sound as they sounded on the glossy hardwood. "Alex, this is not about exercising self-control. To survive is the goal here. You're not just destroying relationships, you're igniting a fire that will consume the entire town. Although you are aware of this fact, Demera Enterprises is not yours to seize. This is something that EJ and Chad will not let go of, and you are not prepared for the conflict that you are starting." The muscles in Alex's jaw contracted, and he slammed the glass down with a purposeful collision. "Do you believe that I am terrified of them? EJ's plotting or Chad's sanctimonious whining? Which one is more likely? Hey, Stephanie, my name is Kyriakis. However, we do not retreat. We end up with what we desire." The words caused her heart to twist so much. There was a moment when she had been exactly what he desired all along, when their late-night conversations and secret kisses had felt like the beginning of something that could never be broken. On the other hand, that Alex, the one who had made her laugh and who had listened to her vent her anxieties, was buried beneath layers of ambition and animosity. It was imperative that she make an effort to get in touch with him, even though she was uncertain about her ability to do so. She whispered, "Alex," and her voice was catching as she spoke. "This is not you at all. In order to seize power, the man I knew would not put everything on the line. In order to make a point, he would never intentionally cause harm to the people he loves about." He swiftly covered up the fracture in his armor with a smirk, but his eyes twitched as if he were doing something. "Steph, please don't romanticize about me. Have you not forgotten that you left? You have no interest in living the Kyriakis life. When it comes to what I do now, why do you care?" Her voice became more agitated as she yelled out, "Because I see you. I can see what damage this is causing to you. Because you are not getting enough sleep. You're drinking an excessive amount, and you are driving everyone away. There is no way that Victor would have desired this for you. He would have advised you to fight tactically rather than recklessly. The mention of Alex's grandfather caused him to wince, and for a brief while, the room was silent. The weight of Victor's heritage hung between them, and it was all because of this. The opportunity presented itself, and Stephanie took advantage of it by moving closer until she was only a foot away, her voice lowering to a ferocious whisper. It's not just your future that you're putting at stake, Alex. This puts Titan in jeopardy. You are putting your family at danger. Maggie is already experiencing a great deal of anxiety, and Justin is attempting to clean up your mess, but he is unable to do so on his own. Continuing on will result in you losing everything you own. To what end then? What about a business that you have never owned? With his hands twisted into fists, he turned his back on the conversation and stared out the window at the expansive land surrounding him. You don't seem to understand, do you? It's not only about Demira in this case. It's about demonstrating that I'm not the stupid person that everyone believes I am. Throughout my entire childhood, I have been referred to as Victor's grandson and Justin's disappointment. I am given the opportunity to become more. Stephanie felt a tightening in her throat. This agony, the urge to carve out a place for oneself in a world that was always trying to define you, was something that she was aware of. In order to emerge from the shadows cast by her parents, she had the courage to fight her own fights. However, this was not the way to proceed. The tone of her voice became more solid as she stated, "You do not require Demira to prove that. You bring more to the table. From the ground up, you are the individual who was responsible for rebuilding Titan's marketing division. After a number of years of having doubts about you, the board finally decided to put their faith in you. If you want to demonstrate to the world who you are, you don't have to steal the empire of another person." Although he did not turn around, she noticed that his shoulders were slightly sagging, and she realized that she had struck a chord. Her statements were frank and intense as she continued to speak. "Get out of here, Alex. Put an end to the takeover. You are way more capable than this conflict. And on some level, you are aware of it." The only sound that could be heard was the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock that was located in the corner of the room. He remained silent for a considerable amount of time. At long last, he turned his back on her and faced her, his look being indecipherable. "What if I don't do it? Where do you stand, Stephanie? Are you going to give up on me, just like every other person?" She found herself unable to breathe, and she felt tears well up in her eyes. She had the desire to reach out to him and pull him back from the brink of destruction, but she was aware that this had to be his decision. The words, "I haven't given up on you," were spoken in a low voice. "I can't stand by and watch you sabotage yourself, though. You will lose more than just this trade if you do not stop at this point. You are going to lose the ones who continue to have faith in you." It was a hefty and conclusive statement that hung in the air. His black eyes seemed to be examining her face as he stared at her, as if he was looking for a reason to trust what she was saying. After that, he did not utter a single word as he took up his glass and emptied it, leaving behind a sound that resembled a gunshot as the empty glass struck the desk. As he spoke, his tone was gruff and low. "Get out," he muttered. "I have no need for your sympathy." In spite of the fact that Stephanie's heart was sinking, she did not allow him to see her crack. She retained his stare. "Alex, this is not an act of pity. This is love. And this will be the final time that I inquire." After turning around, she walked out of the room, the sound of her footsteps becoming less audible as the door shut behind her. While Alex stood in the study by himself, the bourbon was burning in his throat, and Stephanie's comments were resonating in his ears constantly. Finally, after what seemed like weeks, he experienced the weight of his decisions, along with the glimmering optimism that he might yet be able to pick a different course of action. In the midst of Salem's ongoing upheaval, the Horton living room shone with the gentle warmth of lamplight, serving as a haven within which memories could be found. By the fireplace, Maggie Horton Kyriakis stood with her hands tightly gripped together, and her eyes, which were always calm, were filled with concern. This evening, the ticking of the grandfather clock appeared to be more audible, and with each passing second, the weight of the talk that she knew she couldn't escape became more pronounced. In the opposite corner of the room, Xander Kyriakis was lounging in an armchair. His large form seemed calm, but his dark eyes were watchful, as if a panther had detected a trap before it. Despite the fact that he had come at her request, the strain in his jaw suggested that he knew the reason. Maggie started off by saying, "Xander," in a tone that was gentle yet forceful, "we need to talk." The slightest hint of a grin played across his lips as he lifted an eyebrow. "Maggie, what exactly is this? Another lecture about the decisions I've made in my life?" In my mind, we had already moved on from that. Maggie pulled her lips together to form a narrow line. She had never failed to recognize the positive qualities that Xander possessed, even when others dismissed him as Victor's cruel enforcer. She believed that he had the potential to change, so she invited him into her house and her heart. In spite of this, she was compelled to confront the reality because of the allegations that were circulating around Salem. These rumors included whispers of backroom dealings, missing funds at Titan, and a mystery connection to a Demira shell business. She was unable to continue to disregard the indications. "This is not a lecture," she added as she moved closer to the speaker. "From the perspective of someone who loves you, I am requesting that you tell the truth. Xander, what are you doing right now? What really is carrying on with Titan?" His smirk started to disappear, and it was replaced by a guarded gaze. He appeared to be attempting to steady himself by leaning forward with his elbows on his knees and his hands clasped together. "Margaret, Titan is doing well. It's all under control here. It is not necessary for you to be concerned about it to the slightest degree. Don't be so condescending to me," she yelled, her tone being more acerbic than she had intended. "I'm not some knave off-looker," she said. "For a longer period of time than you have been alive, I have been a member of the Kyriakis family. When something is wrong, I am aware of it, and I am aware of you. Something is being concealed by you." With a storm gathering behind them, Xander's eyes sparked with excitement. The movements of his body were agitated as he stood and walked toward the window. "You're going fishing, Maggie. If you have accusations, you should just articulate them. Do not leave me to speculate." It hurt her heart to hear the defensiveness in his tone, and to see how he was separating himself from others. She thought back to the youngster he had been, Victor's nephew, when he was anxious for approval and caught between his own issues and his commitment to his family. Especially for Sarah, she had witnessed him develop, falter, and struggle to become a better person. However, whatever it was that he was currently involved in posed a risk of undoing everything. She added, "I'm not accusing you," while lowering the volume of her voice. "I am requesting that you have faith in me. Xander, I've just heard some things. Regarding the money that is traveling through Titan's accounts, deals with individuals that you should avoid the company of. Then there was the meeting that took place with E.J. Demira the previous week. Please do not tell me that it was nothing. I am more knowledgeable. With his back turned to her, he froze, and the muscles in his shoulders began to tense up. The weight of her words settled like dust in the room, and for a little while, there was silence around the room. Next, he turned around, his face a mask of wrath that was under control. Have you been keeping an eye on me? No, she stated so resolutely. My attention has been focused on this. There is a contrasting option. I didn't want to make the assumption that you were involved when Justin told me about the discrepancies that were found in Titan's books. On the other hand, Sarah claimed that you have been aloof and have been making unauthorized phone calls at unusual hours. And I just now learned that you are going to meet with EJ, of all people? Xander, let me know what you are doing. A look of exasperation emanated from him as he ran his hand through his dark hair and tightened his jaw against his chest. Madam, this is a working matter. It is all that. Titan is currently in a difficult situation. The competition is severe, and we require alliances. EJ is in possession of resources. I'm doing everything that I can to ensure that we continue to exist. With her eyes shimmering with tears that had not yet been shed, Maggie shook her head. You must not deceive me. It is not merely a matter of making deals. You are engaging in a risky game, and the stakes are elevated to include more than simply Titan. Your family is involved. Your daughter, Sarah, and I are all connected to you in some way. If you violate the rules, you won't be the only one who will have to suffer the consequences. Xander's expression softened when Sarah and their daughter were mentioned, and for a tiny moment, Maggie saw the man she believed in, the one who had worked to be worthy of his family. Xander's demeanor relaxed. On the other hand, his walls continued to rise, and he crossed his arms while maintaining a quiet voice. You think I am unaware of it, don't you? Every action I take is on their behalf. Due to you, Maggie, I am not really Victor. It is not possible for me to rely on his legacy. I have to find my own way, she said. Her emotions are warped. Her voice was shaking but unwavering as she moved closer to the speaker. You are absolutely correct. There is no Victor in you. It is not necessary for you to be. In spite of the fact that Victor committed enormous errors, I continue to love him. On the other hand, I won't just sit here and watch you repeat them. If you are working with the Demiras, or if you are concealing information that could be harmful to this family, I request that you cease what you are doing. Tell the truth. Allow us to be of assistance to you. She was able to see the conflict that was going on inside of Xander, which was a struggle between pride and weakness, as well as between love and ambition. With his voice barely audible above a whisper, he moved closer to her and took a step. And if I am unable to? What if I get myself into too much trouble? Then you fight to get out, she expressed with a ferocious tone in her voice. Xander, you are a fan of the Kyriakis. You are less weak than you believe you are. You can accomplish it by yourself, though. Please let me in. Let Sarah come in. Our family is your family. He remained silent for a considerable amount of time, and the atmosphere between them was thick with unspoken facts. Then, with his shoulders sagging, he turned his back on her. Maggie, you are simply not understanding. There are some things that simply cannot be fixed. Her heart was numb with fear, and she was unable to breathe. What exactly have you been up to, Xander? Rather than responding, he remained silent, which was more damaging than any confession. As Maggie's mind raced, she pieced together the pieces of the puzzle, which included missing monies, secret meetings, and the fingerprints of the Demiras. No matter what Xander was involved in, it was much more significant than she had anticipated. However, she was not going to give up on him. Not at this time. In spite of the tears that were in her eyes, she maintained her composure and said, "Listen to me. We are able to face whatever it is that you have done together. You are required to make a decision right now. As long as you continue along this route, you will end up losing everything. Or you can put your faith in me, and together we will find a way out. For Sarah's sake, just for you, and for your daughter." When Xander finally met her gaze, his eyes were raw and conflicted. His hands were clenched into fists, and he was holding them tightly. The words, "I don't deserve you, Maggie," came out of his mouth as his voice broke. "I never done that." She extended her hand and placed it on his arm, her touch being kind but uncompromising when she did so. "That is not the case. It's a family affair, Xander. Moreover, the family does not give up." As he continued to look at her, the significance of what she had said began to seep in. There was a glimmer of optimism that appeared on his face for the very first time that evening. It was delicate but genuine. Maggie prayed that it would be sufficient to bring him back from the brink of insanity. In Salem, redemption was never simple, but it was always attainable. She would fight for Xander's soul for as long as she had breath in her body. Against the backdrop of the night, the skyscrapers of Chicago sparkled, providing a cold and impersonal backdrop to the storm that was raging inside of Kate Roberts' heart. Her sleek black coat was being pulled about by the wind as she stood outside of a warehouse that was unremarkable and located in an industrial zone. The screen of the burner phone displayed a single text message from an unknown source that said, "He's here." Her manicured fingers were still holding the phone. "Do not come by yourself." Kate was not paying attention. When it came to her children, particularly Philip, she never did anything like that. She had been following rumors about his whereabouts for a considerable amount of time, ever since he disappeared from Salem following a mysterious altercation with Brady regarding Titan's destiny. At this moment, she was standing on the brink of answers, and her heartbeat was pulsating with a mixture of hope and fear. There was a sliver of dull light that spilled over the cracked pavement from the warehouse door, which was slightly ajar. As Kate entered the room, her eyes adjusted to the vastness of the area, and her shoes clicked as she set foot inside. The air smelled of rust and oil, and there were crates that were looming in the shadows. On the opposite side of the room, there was a figure sitting in a chair with his head lowered. She was unable to breathe. Despite the fact that he was restrained, she would recognize him even in low light because of his broad shoulders, his unkempt hair, and the Kyriakis defiance that was present in his posture. She spoke in a hushed whisper, "Philip," disturbing the silence with her voice. His head suddenly jerked up, and their eyes suddenly connected. Her youngest son, Philip Kyriakis, appeared to be older than she had recalled. His face was emaciated, a bruise was darkening his jaw, and his eyes, which had been bright in the past, had become dull due to weariness. Due to the fact that his wrists were secured to the chair with duct tape, a faint sheen of sweat was visible on his forehead. But he was still alive. A wave of relief washed over Kate, and then she was overcome with rage. This would be paid for by whoever had done it. "Mom?" Philip's voice sounded scratchy, and the word disbelief was laced throughout it. "What the hell are you doing in this damn place?" In a few fast steps, she made her way across the room and kneeled down next to him, her hands already pulling at the tape. "What else could we do to save you? Come to a halt." Despite the fact that her fingers were working quickly, her eyes were exploring his face for various solutions. "Who was it that did this to you? Your whereabouts are unknown." The sound of Philip's voice was low as his gaze went to the darkness. "You have no business being here. It may not be safe. They are going to come back." Kate screamed, "I don't care," with a menacing tone in her voice. "I've been under the impression that you had passed away for a number of months, Philip. Are you aware of the impact that such a thing had on me? Where is your father? What about Billy and Lucas? I won't give up without you by my side." The muscles in his jaw clenched, and he averted his gaze, a trace of remorse visible in his eyes. Kate was familiar with such expression. Exactly as he always does, Philip was concealing something. His faults, his rivalries, and his reckless heart were all things that she had loved him through as she had reared him. This, however, was not the case. This wasn't only a power ploy by Kyriakis or a feud amongst members of the Black family. This was a more foreboding scenario. His wrists were released by her, and he caressed them while he grimaced. Kate got to her feet and pulled him up to his feet. "Get down on the ground, Philip. Is there a reason you vanished? What is the reason for your confinement at a warehouse in Chicago? And please don't lie to me. I'll find out." He paused, his eyes appearing to probe hers, as if he was considering how much information to divulge. The last thing he said was, "It's complicated. I was in over my head when I got involved. After my altercation with Brady, I found that I was unable to remain in Salem. I had to demonstrate that I was capable of standing on my own, without Titan and without the shadow of my father." Kate's heart became deformed. The fight that Philip had to carve out his own path, always evaluating himself against Victor's legacy or Brady's moral high ground, was something that she had witnessed. But what about fleeing? Not her son was that person. What do you think? Have you gone off to play the role of a gangster? Got yourself in a situation with the wrong people? It was sufficient for him to remain silent. Kate's thoughts raced as she pieced together the pieces of the puzzle, which included his disappearance, the rumors of a connection to Demira, and the mysterious text that brought her to this location. She persisted in her claim that this is about the Demiras, isn't it? Who is EJ? Is it someone even worse? Philip's eyes became more gloomy. Not I, EJ. This is Vivian. Mom, she has returned. Not only that, but she has plans, big ones. My belief was that I could outwit her and make use of her riches to construct something that was uniquely mine. She, however, played me. Using a hand gesture toward the warehouse, he explained, "This is her way of communicating with us." Kate's blood became ice cold. Vivian Alamain, the poisonous matriarch who had repeatedly dragged herself back into Salem's seedy underbelly, was the subject of this sentence. Should Vivian be implicated, Philip was in a more serious situation than she had anticipated. She demanded to know, "What kind of message is this?" A quiet clap reverberated throughout the warehouse before he had the opportunity to respond. The moment Kate turned around, her hand reached for the little revolver that was concealed in her purse against her will. There was a woman who stepped into the light, and her name was Vivian. She had a predatory smile on her lips, and she was surrounded by 2 armed goons. "Well, well," she mumbled gently. "At all times, Kate Roberts has been a dedicated mother. It should have been obvious to me that you would follow your wandering dog." Even though Kate's hold on the rifle became more firm, she managed to conceal it. "Vivian," she murmured, sounding essy in her voice. "Should you have caused harm to my son, I will bury you." With a sound that sounded like shattered glass, Vivian laughed. "Oh, Kate, you are known to be so dramatic. For the time being, Philip is doing well. However, he has been mischievous and has been attempting to deceive me." When someone betrays me, I do not take it well. Philip took a step forward, maintaining his composure in spite of the circumstances. Vivian, this is a private matter between all of us. Allow my mother to leave. He was given a look by Kate. Not going to happen. In an attempt to find a way out of the situation, she resorted to Vivian. Vivian, what desires do you have? Is there money? What is power? Put your price on it, and we'll put an end to this. A glint appeared in Vivian's eyes. Although it seems tempting, I am not here to make a bargain. To bring to Salem's attention who is in charge, I am here. Right up until the point that he changed his mind, Philip was my ticket to Tigan's inner circle. You are both inconvenient at this moment. Kate's heart was pounding as the criminals raised their weapons with confidence. There had been times when she had to confront death, but not in this manner, not with the life of her son at stake. The tone of her voice was low and ferocious as she moved in front of Philip. What do you mean by inconvenient? Make an effort to explain to Victor the reason you killed his son, or to discuss with Stefano's spirit the reason you betrayed a Demira ally. You are not invulnerable, Vivian, she said. Vivian's smile was hesitant for a brief period of time. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Kate quickly slipped her hand into her purse. Philip, down, she said as she pulled out her gun and fired at the guy who was situated closest to her. A state of anarchy ensued when he fell. In the meantime, Kate dove behind a crate and fired her rounds, which prevented Vivian from approaching. Philip tackled the second guard. Get away! As she grabbed Philip's arm, Kate let out a shout. They made a mad dash for the exit, bullets occasionally skimming the air. While waiting outside, Kate's automobile remained with its engine running. They dove in and she slammed the gas, causing the rearview mirror to show that the warehouse was getting smaller. Philip took a deep breath and grabbed the dashboard. Are you aware that you are completely insane? As the adrenaline continued to surge, Kate's lips began to twitch. It would take one to know one. After giving him a quick glance, she lowered her voice. Philip, you are going to be right back. There are no disagreements. Vivian will be dealt with, but we will get through it together. What do you mean? He gave a slight nod, his eyes meeting hers, and a glimpse of the young boy she had brought up shone through. It's true, Mom, collectively. Even as the lights of Chicago began to fade behind them, Kate was aware that the battle was not yet finished. It was impossible to stop Vivian, and Salem's shadows were growing deeper. But if Philip were by her side, she would be able to handle anything. In Salem, family was more important than any weapon, and Kate Roberts never gave in to the pressure. Marlena Evans and Susan Banks were seated at the checkered tablecloth in the Horton Town Square Cafe, which was illuminated by the warm glow of the morning sun that penetrated the lace curtains that were hanging in the establishment. We were experiencing a rare moment of calm in the midst of Salem's never-ending maelstrom of drama, and the air was thick with the perfume of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon pastries. The weight of her most recent therapy sessions was concealed by Marlena's placid smile as she sipped her cappuccino while wearing an attractive cream blazer. On the other side of her, Susan, who was wearing a flashy flowery outfit and enormous glasses, was nibbling on a waffle. Her nervous energy was obvious as she talked about Elvis Presley's cosmic vibrations. Oh, Dr. Marlena, I'm telling you, I had a dream last night that was as easy to understand as the sun. The warning that Elvis was giving me was about something sinister coming to Salem. Something nefarious. Susan's voice became more elevated, and her hands began to flap, almost causing her orange juice to fall over. As Marlena put her cup down, her psychiatrist maintained his unflappable composure. Susan, although dreams can be quite powerful, they are frequently nothing more than our thoughts processing our feelings. Are you experiencing feelings of anxiety as of late? The eyes of Susan were wide as she leaned forward. Are you anxious? I'm more aroused than a cat in a room full of rocking rockers, Dr. Marlena. I'm jumping up and down. From the moment EJ began acting in such a covert manner, I have been experiencing a lot of negative energy. What about my tarot cards? They are continuing to display the Tower card. That's some awful juju, don't you think? No smile appeared on Marlena's face. Even though they were taxing, Susan's idiosyncrasies were endearing. The Tower may represent change, but it does not necessarily represent tragedy. Let's bring our attention to the truth. I was wondering if you had discussed your worries with EJ. Even before Susan had a chance to respond, the door to the cafe slammed open with a resounding bang, destroying the tranquility of the morning. As Kristen DiMera came in, everyone's attention was drawn to her. Her leather jacket and pointed heels provided a striking contrast to the warm and inviting atmosphere. Marlena and Susan were the targets of her burning gaze, which were filled with rage. The clients grew silent, and the air crackled with the anticipation of a confrontation between Salem and the other party. Marlena, Kristen yelled from the distance as she made her way to their table, "You meddlesome shrink." In addition to that, she pointed her finger at Susan and said, "You nosy little psychic. You have both been snooping about in areas where you have no business being." With a gasp, Susan clutched her napkin tightly, as if it were a barrier. "Oh my goodness, Kristen. Don't go behaving in a rude and frightening manner. There is nothing else I have done than eat my waffle." The tone of Marlena's voice was calm yet resolute as she stood. "Kristen, whatever it is, let's handle it in private," the speaker said. "It would be unnecessary to make a scene." With a harsh and acrid tone, Kristen let out a laugh. "It's a scene? Wow, you haven't seen anything yet, have you? It is not a secret that you have been investigating my plans, Marlena. Additionally, Susan, your visions have been a source of contention. Did you really believe that I wouldn't find out?" The thoughts in Marlena's head were racing. She had a sneaking suspicion that Kristen was up to something. Her previous conversations with Brady had given her hints about Kristen's increased plotting, which could have been connected to DiMera Enterprises' most recent attempt to seize control. "Stilled, Susan?" Marlena cast a glance in the direction of her buddy, whose hands in a state of trembling revealed more than ordinary anxiety. What was it that Susan had stumbled upon? Marlena stepped in between Kristen and Susan and stated, "If you have a problem, you should discuss it with me because I am here to help. Take Susan out of this conversation." However, Susan was not the type of person to remain silent. Her voice was trembling but fierce as she launched herself to her feet. "Now, Kristen DiMera, please stop what you're doing for a moment and give me a moment. Despite the fact that I have no idea what you are talking about, I am not afraid whatsoever. The visions I have of Elvis are true, and if they are pointing to you doing something bad, then you are the one who is responsible for it." The pupils in Kristen's eyes contracted, and she moved closer to the woman while lowering her voice to a threatening whisper. "Susan, do you want to talk about depraved things? What do you think about the brief conversation you had with EJ the previous week, in which you divulged your purported predictions regarding my secret project? It might also be that you, Marlena, are urging Brady to look through my files. It's clear that both of you are in over your heads." The news broke Marlena's heart. While Brady was expressing his suspicions, she had not encouraged him to spy. Rather, she had simply listened to him. However, she was totally unaware of Susan's involvement. "Susan," she whispered, "what did you tell EJ?" Susan was surprised. Susan's face became contorted and tears began to well up. "Dr. Marlena, I hope you don't take offense to my words. I have just informed EJ that I had a vision of a large snake in a luxurious office, and I was under the impression that it was about Kristen's plans. I was attempting to shield him from harm. It was Kristen's sneer. Take care of him. The opposite has been done by you. EJ is asking questions as a result of your babbling, and I don't like it when things are left unfinished." The patrons of the cafe observed, some of them speaking to one another while others crept for the exits. Marlena was aware that moments remained before this situation became even more serious. Not only was Kristen angry, but she was also desperate, and a Demira who was desperate was a deadly one. When Marlena spoke to Kristen, she maintained a steady tone and added, "No matter what you're planning, it's not too late to stop. In Salem, secrets are never able to remain hidden. You are aware of that." Something about Kristen's laugh felt eerie. "Oh, Marlena, you are the epitome of optimism. On the other hand, I am in control of everything this time. And if the two of you do not retreat, you will come to regret it." With a poisonous hiss in her voice, she leaned in closer. "In particular, you, Susan. The visions you have won't rescue you from what's going to happen." Susan let out a gasp while clinging to Marlena's arm. "Dr. Marlena," she has that tense expression on her face. For example, when Stefano used to look right through you. The memories of the innumerable times that Marlena had been threatened by Demira came flooding back to her. She was not going to allow Kristen to intimidate them. She said the words "enough" with a forceful tone. "If you're having an issue, you should discuss it with either EJ or Brady. But if you threaten Susan once again, you will have to account to me, as well as John and 50% of Salem." "Kristen, you are not invincible," she said. Kristen's confidence wavered for a little period of time, and her eyes lit up with a sense of uncertainty. Marlena made the most of the opportunity and led Susan straight to the entrance. "We will be departing. This chat has come to an end." However, as soon as they stepped outdoors, Susan's grip on Marlena's arm became increasingly firm. She spoke in a hushed whisper, "Dr. Marlena," and her voice was shaking. "I didn't tell you the whole vision. It wasn't just Kristen, but the snake as well. Someone else was around, someone who was hiding in the shadows. And they are coming for each and every one of us." It caused Marlena's tummy to twist. Despite the fact that Susan's visions were frequently jumbled, they had a certain ability to lead to the truth. During the time that they were rushing down the street, Marlena's thoughts were racing as the warmth of the cafe began to fade behind them. The plans that Kristen had, the warnings that Susan had, and the involvement of EJ made it a complex web, even by the standards of Salem. John and possibly even Brady would need to be warned, but first and foremost, she wanted to make sure Susan was safe. According to Marlena, who spoke in a forceful tone, "Stay with me tonight. In the end, we will work this out together." The glasses that Susan was wearing fell down her nose as she nodded. "Oh, Your Honor, Dr. Marlena, I knew you would comprehend. It was Elvis who always referred to you as an angel." Although Marlena was able to muster a hint of a grin, her heart was sad. Although breakfast had been disrupted, the storm that was about to occur was just getting started. The tranquility that prevailed in Salem was in short supply, and danger was never far behind. As they vanished into the light of the dawn, Marlena braced herself for what was to come, knowing one thing for certain. Whatever Kristen was doing, she and Susan would confront it head-on. As Sean Brady huddled behind a crumbling stone wall, his heart was beating rapidly, and the humid air of a secluded Caribbean island stuck to his skin. A research center could be seen in the distance, its stark white buildings providing a striking contrast to the verdant jungle that surrounded it. Somewhat of a light emanated from the structure. It was possible that the remedy for the mysterious toxin that had rendered his father, Beau Brady, unconscious in a Salem hospital bed, was hidden somewhere within that fortress. This would allow him to save his father. An expression of unwavering resolve appeared on Sean's face as he tightened his hold on the binoculars. In the conflict, he was not the only one. His uncle, Steve Johnson, who had faced death more times than most people, squatted next to him, his single eye surveying the perimeter with the accuracy of an experienced agent. Steve Johnson was a guy who had stared death down several times. "Who are you sure about this, young man?" Steve said in a low whisper, his voice strong yet unwavering. "This is not a yacht club," the speaker said. "We're on their territory, and these players are dishonest in their play." As Sean walked away from the facility, his gaze did not waver. "I am certain. The clock is ticking down for Dad. In the event that Dr. Rolf's research is included, we will be obtaining it, regardless of the circumstances." Steve nodded his head curtly, a sliver of a smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. "This exemplifies the Brady spirit. Allow us to move." Salem had been rocked to its very foundations by Beau's sickness. Kayla's knowledge was not enough to stop the inexorable spread of the poison, which was a bioweapon that was connected to a conspiracy by Rove DiMera. The toxin had happened without any prior notice. When the rest of the family was trying to figure out what was going on, Hope was a complete and utter mess. She seldom left Beau's bedside. This island was the destination that Sean and Steve had been directed to by a mysterious lead from an old ISA source. It was on this island where Dr. Wilhelm Rolf, the crazed scientist who had a talent for avoiding death, had purportedly created an antidote before he vanished. What is the catch? There were mercenaries sent to protect the facility, and the DiMeras were never more than a few steps away. Both Sean, from his time as a police officer, and Steve, from his days as a member of the Black Patch, crept stealthily through the bush, their steps muffled by the years of training they had received. With the buzzing of insects and the distant crackling of a guard's radio, the atmosphere was filled with a buzzing buzz. Sean's thoughts immediately went to his father, the educator who had instilled in him the values of sailing, fighting for what is right and never giving up. Beau had made it through kidnappings, torture, and even more heinous acts. At this point, he could not afford to lose him. The outer fence of the facility, which had a chain-link barrier topped with razor wire, was one of the places they arrived. From his rucksack, Steve quickly and accurately extracted a pair of bolt cutters. His motions were speedy and precise. "As soon as we are inside, we have no more than 10 minutes before the patrol makes its way back. Do you have the layout committed to memory?" Sean gave a slight nod and tapped his temple. "Rolf's laboratory is located on the second floor of the East Wing. The antidote is most likely stored in a safe deposit box, most likely a biometric one." He let out a snort. "That's all. Rolf has always been a bastard known for his paranoia. There is a possibility that we will locate a sample. If not, then," he began to stutter, but Sean was aware of what he truly meant. It was unlikely that Beau would survive if they were unable to locate a remedy. The fence eventually gave way with a gentle snip, and they were able to sneak under it and make their way to a side door. They were inside in a matter of seconds after Steve picked the lock, and the odor of antiseptic washed over them like a wave coming from the ocean. The halls were illuminated by fluorescent lights that flickered, creating an eerie silence. Although Sean's heart was pounding, he managed to maintain his concentration by following the mental map that he had etched into his head. They arrived at the East Wing without any problems, but as they rounded a curve, a guard appeared in front of them with his rifle casually thrown over his shoulder instead of being carried. Steve was the first to respond, and he tackled the man immediately before he could sound the alarm. After being subjected to a brief chokehold, the guard collapsed to the ground, unconscious. With his hands trembling slightly, Sean dragged him into a closet by his side. The words, "We're running out of time," were mumbled by him. Steve gave him a small tap on the shoulder and added, "Stay as cold as you can. We're quite close." A high-tech setup with glistening equipment and rows of vials, secure behind glass, could be found in the laboratory, which was just where the intelligence had predicted it would be. Sean's eyes traveled throughout the room, eventually settling on a robust door located at the opposite end. This had to be the safe deposit box. Steve had already arrived to the control panel and was removing a portable gadget in order to circumvent the security measures. "Give me a moment. This ain't my first time doing this." While Steve was working, Sean's thoughts began to wander to his mother. While she was saying farewell to him with a hug, Hope's voice had broken, and her eyes had been imploring. "Sean, please bring him up to me again." In no way could he disappoint her. It was impossible for him to let Sierra, Doug, or anyone else to lose Bo. Despite the fact that it was pressing down on his chest, he managed to shove it away. "Pay attention. It is something that his father would do." A gentle beep pierced the silence, and the door to the vault opened with a hissing sound. The container contained a refrigerator, and on a single shelf within the refrigerator was a vial of a blue liquid that was glowing. Sean's breath was taken away. "What do you think?" As Steve looked at the label, his eyes tightened in concentration. The handwriting of Rolf is, "Toxin X17 contains an antidote. This is the ticket for us." After placing the vial inside a protective case, he made sure to properly secure it in his bag. "Let's flee this place as quickly as possible." But just as they were about to depart, alarms began to sound and red lights began to flare above them. The hall was filled with the echoes of footsteps. Sean's stomach sank to the floor. "They are aware that we arrive." Steve muttered an expletive under his breath as he removed a firearm from his waistband. "Plan B," she said. "We fight our way out of this." After that, the following few minutes were a whirlwind of mayhem. Sean and Steve fought back to back as mercenaries flooded into the laboratory. Their motions were a fluid dance of instinct and expertise, and they were a formidable adversary. Using his weapon, Sean was able to disarm one of the guards and knock out another, while Steve was able to take down 3 of the guards using a mix of his fists and pure determination. They avoided being hit by gunshots as they made their way across the corridor till they reached the exit. Sean and Steve had the benefit of being desperate, despite the fact that the jungle was teeming with people who were pursuing them. They ran in the direction of the coast, where hiding in the mangroves was a boat that was waiting for them. Sean clenched the pack that contained the antidote tightly, his knuckles turning white as they inched away from the facility, which was receding behind them. During the process of guiding the boat into open sea, Steve exclaimed, "You did a good job, kid. Beau is going to be really pleased." In spite of the fact that Sean's smile was wobbly, his eyes were fixed on the horizon, where Salem was waiting. Even though they had the antidote in their possession, the battle was not yet done. At that moment, Beau's life was in jeopardy, and Sean would not stop until his father was back, laughing, arguing, and living. This struggle, however, was won by them for the time being. Furthermore, in Salem, that was sufficient to maintain a sense of optimism. The Kyriakis home was shrouded in the silence of the late evening, with its luxurious corridors illuminated by sconces that flickered in the darkness. While standing in the study, Sarah Horton had her arms crossed, and her heart was filled with a mixture of love and rage. It was a mahogany desk in front of her that was covered in paperwork, including financial records, emails with enigmatic messages, and a burner phone that she had discovered concealed in Sanders' jacket. When she was waiting for him, her green eyes, which were always warm, burned with determination. For an excessive amount of time, she had disregarded the warning signs, which included his late-night calls, his evasiveness, and the rumors of shady deals at Titan. This evening, Sarah had used up all of her excuses. No matter how painful it was, she found herself in need of the truth. The door opened with a creak, and Xander Kyriakis entered the room, his massive bulk occupying the space between the door and the entryway. It appeared as though he had been struggling with his own personal issues, as his dark hair was tangled and his tie was loose. His lovely grin was replaced by a suspicious gleam in his eyes when he noticed Sarah. He stopped smiling as he saw her. He addressed her with a Scottish accent that was gentle but strained, "Sarah, love," and asked, "What's with the ambush? It's now late." Sarah spoke with a tone that was calm but acerbic, and she told Xander, "No more games." She made a motion toward the desk. "Your phone was located by me, as well as these papers. Once more, you have been dishonest with me. I want to know the truth. Every single thing, right now." Xander's eyes darted to the desk, and for a brief instant, his control wavered, displaying a glimmer of panic in his eyes. It didn't take him long to recover, and he moved through the room with deliberate ease. "Darling, you are making your assumptions too quickly. Documents of a business nature are what those are. My job is to clean up Titan, which has been a complete mess. You are aware of the situation." There was a sharp acridity to Sarah's chuckle that pierced through the air. "Let me not be insulted. I am not in any way a knave intern that you can easily sway with a grin." According to these communications, Xander, offshore accounts are mentioned. I also had meetings with folks I had never heard of before, people who were connected to the Dimaras. Not a single thing is being sorted by you. You are currently in the thick of something potentially hazardous, and I have a right to know what it is. When he came to a stop, his hands were clenched at his sides. The atmosphere was dense with the weight of their shared past, which included love, betrayal, redemption, and the delicate trust that they had restored after so many false starts. The room seemed smaller than it actually was. When other people saw Xander as nothing but a villain, Sarah had battled for him and believed in him. She felt the ground beneath her move as she stared into his guarded eyes, but now she was aware of the change. The tone of his voice became more subdued, almost imploring, as he addressed Sarah. "You do not comprehend. I'm taking care of this for us. To our daughter, please, because of our future." In spite of the fact that the mention of their daughter caused her heart to wrench, she remained steadfast. "Don't even think about hiding behind her now. What is the point of keeping something that you are doing for us a secret? Who would lie to me? My support has been there for you through everything, including kidnappings, conspiracies, and even while you were working for Victor's most nefarious schemes. However, if you are not being truthful, I will not be able to accomplish this." As he paced around like an animal that was confined, Xander ran his hand through his hair. "It's not as easy as described. If I inform you, you will put yourself in jeopardy. People like this don't follow the rules that Salem has set. One mistake, and I won't be the only one who has to pay for it. This is you. Indeed, it is our little girl." As Sarah's rage and dread mingled, she found herself unable to breathe. The voice was quivering yet furious as she moved closer to the speaker. "Then please tell me who exactly are these individuals? Or is it EJ? Are you Vivian? Who is more serious?" "Xander, I am not a fragile person. My name is Horton, and I've been through more than you could possibly fathom. I am unable to combat something I do not know, however. Moreover, I will not continue to be with a man who does not keep me informed." Xander trembled in response to her comments, his eyes brimming with the conflict that he was experiencing. He averted his gaze and gazed at the painting of Victor that was hung above the fireplace, as if he was seeking advice from the individual who had molded the cruel edges of his personality. Sarah watched him with a tightness in her chest. She loved him, and by God's grace, she did really love him, but love alone was not enough without faith. Not any longer. She said, "Xander, look at me," as she moved behind him and stepped behind him. "I beg you." As he turned, the vulnerability that was there in his eyes almost caused her to break. "Sarah, I never did intend to cause you any harm. It occurred to me that, if you want to protect this from happening to you, I believed I could manage it. But it's far larger than I had anticipated." With her voice acting as a lifeline, she pleaded, "Then tell me. Everything that comes our way, we will tackle it together. You are required to make a decision right now. Our family, me, or whatever it is that you are concealing." When he did not speak for a considerable amount of time, the stillness stretched out like a taut wire. After that, he spoke with a trembling breath, his voice being harsh and low. "A syndicate is what it is. Neither Demira nor Kyriakis, rather, something from another country. After Titan's stock had plummeted over the previous quarter, they approached me. They provided a route out, the opportunity to rebuild, as well as income and connections. Nevertheless, there was a catch." The contents of Sarah's stomach churned. "Are you referring to a catch?" Xander's jaw became more tense. They desired Titan to serve as a display, order to move capital, goods, or whatever else they are trafficking. When I initially heard them, I replied no, but they made it quite plain that I couldn't just walk away, that is, without sacrificing anything. It is known to them that you are Sarah, the subject of our daughter." Her blood ran cold, but she made a conscious effort to maintain her composure. "Why did you choose not to tell me? Alternatively, you could go to the police. Will it be Rafe or John?" The volume of his voice increased as he yelled out, "Because they have people here and there. Police, federal agents, even in Salem. I was under the impression that I could play along and figure out a way to betray them. However, they are forever one step ahead of us." As she pieced together the stakes, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts. This was not just a matter of Xander's pride or desire. Rather, it was a threat to the entire world that they lived in. On the other hand, his secrecy had made the situation much more dire. She uttered those words with tears burning her eyes. "You ought to have trusted me. Together, we might have been able to sort this out. Now, not only are we both targets, but our daughter is also under danger because you believed that you could handle everything on your own." The expression on Xander's face became crumpled, and he stretched out for her with shaky hands. "Sarah, I am truly sorry. I was under the impression that I was guarding you. I had a mistake. To put an end to this, I will do anything." As she took a step back, her heart was hurting, but her will was unshaken. "Then you should begin by being truthful. I will never longer tell lies or keep secrets. Share everything with me, including names, dates, and what they want next. And we are going to call John later tonight. He will be aware of whom to put his faith in." Following a moment of hesitation, Xander gave a little nod, his shoulders sinking under the weight of surrender. "That's fine, every single thing. I beg you, however, to keep yourself safe. I do not want to lose you." With a tightening of her throat, Sarah seized his hand and held it firmly in her holding. "No, you won't. Now, however, we do things in my way, collectively." Xander started to find his way out of the web he had gotten himself entangled in while they sat there, with each word being a step toward redemption or doom. As she listened, Sarah's fear was kept in check by her determination. During the time of Salem, trust was a battleground, and secrets were a form of currency. However, she would fight with everything she had in order to protect her family. Sarah was convinced of one thing: regardless of what the future held, they would face it together as a unified unit. The night continued to drag on, the mansion serving as a weak fortress against the storm that was hovering above them.